Hey there, welcome to Table to Stage. I'm Jordan Worma, and this is my podcast, my continuing mission to explore creativity and to speak with artists and creators from all areas of life. Today's creator is Rebecca Maloney. She is a Naugatuck-based visual artist and a painter, and she possesses unending patience. We initially recorded back in November of last year, but due to a corrupted memory card and my failure to record a backup, we had to do the whole thing again. So, on we go to my delayed conversation with artist Rebecca Maloney.
I'm originally from Manchester, Connecticut, and grew up there. I came out to Naugatuck because I was working in New Haven, so
Okay.
I was looking for a place closer to New Haven. Although I could have lived in any part of the state because I kind of work all around the state.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was doing a lot of stuff in New Haven. So and I found a really nice space in Naugatuck, and it's nice out here. And so
Yeah.
that's what I ended up.
So when you grew up in Manchester, went to school in Manchester, how was that where you were first introduced to the arts? Were you in that area when you discovered your love of painting?
Yeah, I grew up doing a lot of different types of art, especially mostly drawing and working in my sketchbook and stuff. So it kind of started when I was a kid, but in high school, my art class was of most interest to me of all the classes I had. So it kind of flourished when I was in high school, and I had an art teacher that was very supportive of the work I was doing and influenced or just suggested, hey, you should think about art school, and and from there it kind of opened up new opportunities and possibilities for what I could do with my art.
Was there a specific medium that you found that you enjoyed initially? Was it always painting, or was there something like I don't know, doing the carving in the linoleum, or any of the other art projects that you get introduced to?
Yeah, actually in high school I was really interested in sculpture. I was interested in sculpture.
Oh, okay.
A little bit, as much as I was with drawing. And thought that when I got to college, I'd study more of that medium. And then I didn't end up doing that. But I really loved sculpting clay into things, which was a great tool that helped me with my drawing. So I think by, learning those different or taking those different classes and modeling something and feeling it in that way as a 3D substance and moving the sculpture around and creating the shapes of whatever I was making it into, it kind of helped me see things that catered to my drawing when I was looking at something like a still life and the shadows and
right.
So
it just gives you like an understanding of the depth and texture, the dimensionality of something instead of just seeing it as a 2D thing.
Yeah, it really was a helpful process in gaining my skills with drawing.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So,
what was eventually like the trigger for you that you sort of decided you had to focus on one sort of art over others? Because if you enjoyed the clay modeling stuff, how did you eventually determine to move on to the next thing?
When I was in college, my first year of college, we took all forms of art. So we were doing you had to do graphic design, you had to do the drawing, you had to do painting, you had to do 2D, you had to do get your hands into everything. And sculpture, I had a sculpture class, and I was raring to go, and I got into that class and then started working on some projects, and it was like, all right, the teacher would say, all right, this is the idea, this is, start with your idea and then the materials and everything, and when I would go to create the project,
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted to make, but I was dumbfounded with how to put it together. And it made me kind of lose interest in the process.
Right,
I was like, oh man, it's like slowed me down in a way where I was really excited about that what's the word? Just being able to put it on paper in a drawing.
Yeah.
In my hand, and like that instantaneous, here it is.
Right.
So that's when I started to just like focus on the drawing and the painting from there.
Yeah.
And say, this is where I'm going to kind of get better. And
so you finished high school and you go to college for art. Was there any hesitation on your part as far as really pursuing an art degree? Did you think maybe there's a little bit of risk in that, or that was just full steam ahead?
No, my parents were very supportive, and and my dad was always just very encouraging, and my mom too, of course. Yeah. But
even to follow an art degree, my
dad was like, hey, like, when you're thinking about your future, might be, a little bit tough but he was like, I want you to do what you love, and we had that conversation. And at the time I was like, no, this is what feels right.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. So it was like that. Okay. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, that support, especially when it comes to like college and actually throwing money into something, is a point of hesitation, I think, for a lot of people.
To have someone believe in you, and it's really important. But I believed in myself too.
Yeah, well, that's important
too.
Yeah.
So, but it was just also exciting. So I think that's another part, is like I was very optimistic about that, because it was exciting to me.
Where did you end up studying?
Montserrat College of Art. It's in Beverly, Massachusetts.
All right. And what was the experience like going from, because you graduated high school in Manchester, and then going to that pretty exclusive school, small school.
Yes, it is.
And trying to assimilate into that culture and getting, studying art and everything. Was it what you expected, or how was that for you?
Yeah, it was. I visited a few schools before I picked Montserrat, and when I went to Montserrat, I really liked the setup of just how everything was and how intimate it was and how small. And then like, the dorms were kind of like it wasn't a giant building. Yeah. They were little, like a 3-family house would be a dorm, and they were all scattered throughout Beverly around the big college. So that was nice. And then you could walk to coffee shops, and there was a beach nearby, and then Boston was maybe 45 minutes from there. So I just had a good feeling about it. But yeah, being there, I was just like all in. When I got to college, I was like, okay, like I was so excited to be learning all the things that I was so much interested in, and discovering new ways to create art, and my professors, challenging me in different ways, and just the periods of intense working on projects more than, because I had that time and space to do it.
Right. Not trying to worry about your English papers and all that stuff too.
And then seeing what was coming from that, and how my drawings were improving in different ways. It was a really amazing experience and fun. I made a lot of great friends that I still have. And in fact, a few of us from Montserrat alumni, like some of my friends that I had as friends in college, they few of us get together every month, and we do like a mastermind, because we all work on our artwork. So we get together and we like talk about what we're doing and offer suggestions. It's fun. It's really fun.
Being that close to Boston, did you get a lot of experience visiting the city while you were at school? Like seeing the art scene there and the museums, everything that they have available there?
Totally. We would get on the train and hop over there and go to different coffee spots and restaurants, and then go to the museums, see exhibits. Yeah.
Anything you see in Boston have any impact on your art, whether it was stuff that you did specifically inspired by, or maybe introduced to different artists that you hadn't been able to experience before?
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but I think just being near a big city like that was, and being away from home at the time, it was just like, oh, there's so much to learn and like see, and that freedom, that little sense of freedom was inspiring.
Yeah. Are there any artists that you learned about, at any point during your art education that really have had an influence and impact on your work as an artist, or just kind of the way you think about art in general?
It's hard to choose, but I do love Robert Motherwell. He's an artist from, I believe it was the 60s. Might be wrong with that, and he was in the kind of New York artists at the time. His work is really impressive. It's large scale abstract work that when I would see in a museum, it would just make me stop. The boldness of the shapes and the contrast of the darks and the lights. And then
through the magic of the internet, I'm able to see some of his work. Cool. And we're surrounded by your own work in this room. And one of the things I can see just looking at his stuff, he works in a lot of muted colors, which is not something that you work in. So is there any direct correlation there between like some of the art that you're drawn to as somebody who can appreciate art and somebody who creates their own? Because you use very vibrant colors.
I do.
And a lot of them. Maybe this is an outlier example of influencers, but there's a lot of earth tones and blacks and muted blues and greens. And I'm just wondering how that style, and I can see the impact, like the style wise, I can see the influence, but color palette wise,
right,
you've taken a 90-degree turn from this.
Well, I also think his artwork at the time was probably very, like, there wasn't a lot of that, I believe, at the time. So, going back into history and seeing what artists were creating and then thinking about those times in history and, like, how that had an impact is also interesting to me. So, because now there's so much different types of, like, everything is, like, just, it's saturated with so many, the art world is just, it's amazing. It's wonderful.
It's so accessible now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think maybe that, because sometimes when I do my abstract work, it's hard for me to limit my palette. Yeah. Maybe there's something there that's like, oh, yeah, I think it's something about that where that impact is there and those colors aren't so bright. I think that might have something to do with it, but I've tried that. I tried to make artwork and just say, I'm only going to use 3 colors. I'm only going to use black and white, and it's so hard.
So what is it about color specifically for you? Because it seems to be, I mean, I don't know enough about art as an academic thing to be able to say anything specific, but the idea of color seems to be a driving force behind every piece I can see in the room right now. Totally. Is that something that you're conscious of while you're doing it? Have I completely just ruined your artistic flow forever because now you're going to be overthinking it?
No. Honestly, I think it's because I have a lot of paints out that are like, if I took all the paints on my table off and I just took 3 colors and put it on the table and said I'm going to create something, then I would be forced to only take from what's there. You
think you could limit yourself that way?
I could do that.
Okay.
I could do that. And I should do that.
We're going to pause right now just to see if it's possible. I brought paint. No,
yeah, I think that's actually important for an artist to do because you get, like, it's probably a comfort for me to do what's natural and grab all the colors and do that. But I think it's important to challenge yourself as an artist and say, I'm going to use a different size canvas today, or I'm going to go really small, or I'm going to only use 3 colors or something, so that's part of it. Because you can see on my tables, like, all my colors are everywhere and out. And so, and then I use collage, so that's another means of many colors on paper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you do painting, but you also do a lot of multimedia stuff. So if you're drawn to drawing and painting, how did you How did you discover and how did you get into the mixed media stuff that you still work in?
So I think it was like back in 2005. While I was in college, my grandmother passed away. And during that time, we were able to take some things from her home that she had packed away. Just like, it was like, hey, like if there's anything of keepsake that you want to,
Yeah.
And it was like for the grandkids kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
to go. And I just remember going into the house and finding a box of old magazines and newspapers from the 60s, just like old stuff, all-time magazines and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but it's important for me to hold on to it. And
was it like the old Life magazines and
that.
stuff, like the old large format that they used to have?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of that in my grandparents' house too.
Yeah. So I took all that home, and I had a studio at the time, and I was living with my parents at the time, and I had the studios in the basement, and I worked late. I worked nights at the time, and then I'd come home and I'd be awake, so I'd just kind of create stuff. I'd go in my studio, I'd just mess around. And I remember just being like, kind of in a moment of like, what am I going to do? And I looked over, I saw that box, and I was like, let's just like pull it out and just, see what I can do with all this stuff. And then I ended up ripping paper, and I used different images on the collage, and I started just putting stuff into my painting. So I'd use the collage and then paint. And I still have a lot of that work. So it was very simple, and it wasn't very layered, but I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I also was like, what about these images and what about these colors are appealing to me? I don't know, but I'm just going to keep creating this stuff. And then I did some shows at the time with that work, and I sold some of the work. But more so, it was really freeing because I wasn't trying to make it look like something or paint it to look like a realistic something. It was just like abstract collage and paint, and it was so fun.
So what is that process like? Are you just cutting different pages out of the magazine and painting on top of it, or are you combining different images and original painted sections?
So basically I start with a surface, and I think during that time I was using a lot of paper. I was working on paper, but I paint just some color. I just put some colors down, and then I would flip through a magazine. I have music on. It's kind of the same process that I do now. Like I'll be in my studio, I'll put my music on. I'll just, have some colors in mind, and I'll just start. And I usually don't have a plan.
Yeah.
But the magazines were there. So like going back, I'd have the magazines out, and I'd be flipping through the magazines, and then I'd be like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to rip that out and then put that to the side.
Yeah.
And then put it down on the surface and see if and move it around, and then, okay, I like it right there, glue it. And it's a fast process for me. It was a fast process for me. So there wasn't a lot of time for me to think about things too much. And that was really fun.
Now, when you're doing that, do you find that the images you find that you pull out of the magazines that end up on the same piece together, are they connected in any way? Like, are they thematically similar? Are they just maybe the color schemes match somehow? What is it that makes you decide that these two images from these different magazines have to go into this one work together?
That's a good question. I still am trying to figure that out about my own work.
Okay.
But I think what it is like there's something of interest that might spark an idea or question in me or in someone else.
Sure.
So, but probably they have nothing to do with each other. Because nowadays I'm using more just color and texture.
Okay.
And so there's not a lot of actual imagery in the collages that I'm making currently.
Where are you getting the texture from? Are you like in the paint itself, or is it just the canvas that you're on?
I can paint my own. So I paint my own papers sometimes, and then I use a jelly plate, which is like a surface that's kind of squishy, but it's like a way to do kind of printmaking, and you can. So I use that to create textures with different. I'll take like like a paintbrush, and I'll make lines on it, and then I'll do a ton of those, and I'll just make a ton of painted papers and put them to the side and stack them away, and sometimes I don't even use them for a while, but and then magazines and like just different print patterns and things like that. But as I do layers of collage and paint, then some textures will appear with a paint.
Okay.
I was talking to somebody the other day about this process, and it's to me it's very interesting because like it's probably been, that was back in 2005, and now it's 2019. It's been a while. But my work has changed, but it's also, there's some parts of it that have stayed the same.
Sure.
And I really am interested in seeing those changes and then thinking about, if I continue this process, where will that lead me, and what will it look like? Where am I going with this? And just that, like, that curiosity in the process.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really there's not a large, like, when I do this abstract work, there's not a whole lot of, like, intention other than a search. I'm searching within this process of creating this work. And I feel like it's just really intriguing.
Hey guys, we're Chuck and Brad. We're two comedians who do the Chuck and Brad podcast, a pop culture podcast based out of Rhode Island.
We just wanted to let you know that we're going on a short comedy tour called Chuck and Brad Reimagine the Avengers.
It's our own comedic retelling of the original Avengers movie, and we're touring the shows the same weekend that Avengers Endgame comes out. So come get a refresher and a new spin on the original Avengers movie before you go see Endgame.
Thursday, April 25th, we'll be in Hartford, Connecticut at the CT Comedy Theater with B.J. Quagan, Andrew Morgan, and Stosh Makita.
Saturday, April 27th, we'll be in New York City at the Pit Loft with Impractical Jokers tour opener Jiggy, Impractical Jokers writer Casey Jost, and UCB veteran Lisa Kleinman.
Sunday, April 28th, we'll be at Laugh Boston with John Tilson, Logan O'Brien, Tyler Swain, and Dan Hall. All event info and tickets at chuckandbradpodcast.com.
Every night we'll have the comics open up the show, and we'll close with our live retelling of The Avengers.
And for a tiny bit of background, we've done the podcast for 10 years. We've had on great guests like Jeff Tremaine, the director of the Jackass movies, the bands Bowling for Soup, Less Than Jake, Real Big Fish, Big D and the Kids Table, and many, many more.
And if you're a big podcast listener, you might know me from Tell 'em Steve Dave. I work on film projects for the podcast Tell 'em Steve Dave, which is made up of Walton Bryant from AMC's Comic Book Men and Quinn from True TV's Impractical Jokers. I consistently do the film work for the Tell 'em Steve Dave Patreon. So come on out, support this very weird live comedy show, and hopefully more and more podcasts will start doing their own live alternative shows.
Once again, that's Chuck and Brad Reimagine the Avengers, New York City, Hartford, and Boston. See you at the end of the month. chuckandbradpodcast.com.
Have you been able to track the progress of your work in any way that you've noticed consciously since maybe around that time, 2005, till now? Like, if you look back at your stuff then, compared to now, are you able to identify, not necessarily like value judgment on it, this, better, worse, whatever, but maybe in the process or in the overall vision of what it is that you're actually putting together? Like, can you see that movement through time?
Yeah. But it's like they're like hints.
Yeah.
Like I had an art show last year, and it was in Hartford, and I was sitting there, and I had created, it was all old work and new work. And I just finished a new painting, and I had it on the wall. And then some people had come over, and I was talking to them about the paintings, and then they were looking at it, and they're like, oh, this is... And then as I was sitting there, I noticed, like, 3 paintings, one from 10 years ago, one from 5 years ago, and one from literally a month prior, all had this, like, checkerboard paper, or, like, some kind of, like, the checkerboard pattern.
Yeah.
And I was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's like really interesting, because I had not seen that before. And so I think that's something that, like you're saying, is like those connections. And then, so those are there, but that's what I think is so interesting. Cause like I said, it's not a planned thing when I go in my studio. I'm not thinking about that. It just happens. It's such an interesting process.
Yeah.
Like, it really is.
So there's not a whole lot of conscious effort that you put into creating a similar style or method to any of this. Just whatever inspires you, you kind of follow. But then that inspiration tends to kind of repeat motifs or what have you. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I also think though too, like you can get comfortable in, like I find that there's a style that I've kind of gravitate towards, where I have work that's got like swirl, like I do kind of the swirling thing that to me makes so much sense when I'm creating it, but I find that that's also become maybe a comfortable place to be.
Okay.
And so I'm curious about now kind of challenging that in a new way. Like I said about maybe limiting my palette or, you know, not doing that thing that I would just naturally do something that's opposite of that.
Right.
What's opposite of that? And like those questions kind of go through my mind now when I'm creating the work, because I think it's okay to continue to do things that are maybe come naturally, but also to like, what's possible if I do the opposite of that sometimes.
Yeah. So if the style that you're working in is a relatively unconscious thing for you, is there a conscious inspiration or a subject that you enjoy painting, or that you can anticipate if it, you know, something triggers in your mind that you know you're going to end up working with that inspiration? Is that something that is conscious for you?
Nature.
Okay.
So I think I've been doing flower paintings recently, and that's another thing, because I have a painting in the other room that's from 2007 of begonias, like a begonia houseplant that I had that I painted in an abstract way. And I remember thinking, this is really interesting, and I still love that painting, but plants and just nature, I think I end up kind of falling back to sometimes.
Okay. You don't really do landscape work, though, do you?
I have.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I have some collage. I have some landscapes that are in collage, but I think that's has some intention to it, and like I go back to that. I did a painting recently. It was like I was creating a world, like a space, and there's trees and there's like hills and mountains and stuff. So an environment or atmosphere, I think that comes through with some intention.
Yeah. Okay, so artists got bills just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And you use your art to pay those bills.
Yeah.
How do you make sure, first of all, that you have time for your own pursuit? And then how does the stuff that you're working on just for you differ from commission work or other projects that you have specifically to pay those bills?
Well, so since I've been doing this and going in on this path, there's been times where I have had other jobs too, like part time. Yeah. So I'll just say that, like, it's like one of those things.
That's
like
pretty universal.
Yeah. Okay. So it ebbs and flows. There's the artwork that I like, commission work and projects that I do. I just think it's, for me, yes, maybe some of those things I wouldn't be working on my own in my studio normally, but I'm still learning through the process of creating these things and working with people and their creative visions. And so it takes discipline, to like just get up in the morning and say, this is what I'm doing. Like, I have everything written out. I have a calendar.
Right.
I have my deadlines. And, you know, being proactive about creating work for myself and finding new opportunities, but also being ready for when opportunities come my way, because that happens too. So It's like, it's hard work, but it's really fun. Yeah.
You do a lot of workshops, kind of, you know, paint night type events. So how did you decide that was a route you wanted to go? And what is that experience like working with groups, whether it's people who are a little bit familiar, at least, with, you know, how to make art, or whether it's, you know, somebody like me walking into the room, like, I can identify a paintbrush, but I don't know what it's for.
Yeah. Well, when I used to live in Las Vegas, and I was working for other companies that were doing paint nights. So that's how I started doing it. And then when I moved back to Connecticut, I was like, well, I'm just going to do my own classes, because I wanted to create my own paintings that people could paint. And I thought that would be really fun. And I started, and I didn't have anything going on when I came back here. So I just jumped right into doing that. And then a lot of friends and like the community was super welcoming, and I was excited, and it was just a really amazing experience when I came back. So I started doing a lot of those events, and they were so fun. But I also it was important to me to find a way to encourage the arts in a way that I could, in some way that I could do that. So being in my studio was a really amazing experience just for me And I enjoy it so much that I thought, well, how can I bring other people, not maybe into my studio, but create a like studio space where people can come together and we can do it together. Yeah. And have that enjoy, like pass that joy to other people. You know, maybe there's other people who are artists, or maybe they're not, but they're doing things at home that they find that joy in a creative project. And hey, let's get together and share that experience. And so those workshops were another means of doing that.
Yeah. What's the difference between a Rebecca Maloney workshop and a paint night?
So a paint night is like step by step. There's just acrylic paint. There's just the brushes, and then a small canvas, and we're painting something to look like something. Okay. And I show you the steps. And
this is like where everybody goes home with the same painting for the most part.
You can have some wine, you can, or, have some food and like get together with your friends, and it's going to maybe like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And,
people love those.
They're fun. Yeah. The workshops are sometimes more than one day. Sometimes they're more sometimes they're a long day of like 6 hours with a break, but there's more going on. And I've done several that are just abstract collage mixed media workshops. So there's more materials to play with and learn about. And then maybe maybe we're making art that's not supposed to look like something, or like we're painting a tree, or it's more intuitive art. So those are more a little more intensive.
Okay. I mean, are they basic level, like here's how you use a paintbrush, or is it more geared toward people who do some painting on their own but are looking for, additional skill, additional training, or, looking to refine what skills they have? Or is it for everybody?
It's kind of for everybody, but I find that the people who come are doing maybe some stuff on their own at home, where they have taken some other art workshops before, and they're just curious about doing something that's new and different. Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be something that, and I know in my house, this certainly applies to us. We're trying to be very intentional about experiencing things rather than just acquiring things. Right. I wish I could be better about it than I am. It's that Amazon thing is just so easy sometimes. But does that help somebody such as yourself who's doing these workshops and paint nights, where there's sort of just, it seems to be just out in the air these days, where people want new experiences or to find a way to be creative outside of what is, and this might be a little bit self-biographical, but just the mundacity of of everyday life, where you want to be able to get out and do something that feels good to create. And I think that's pretty universal. Do you find that those tend to be the people who come to your workshops and your paint nights?
Yeah, they are. And I think they are people too that are interested. Maybe and also interested in connection and being with other people and making art together. But yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah.
Now, another thing that I know that you have spent some time doing, animal portraits. How did that come about? And how do you get them to sit still?
Oh, right. That'd be cool.
Sedatives, duct tape, what is it?
I had somebody reach out to me that was interested in having me do a portrait of her dog who had passed. So I did it, and it was, at the time I was like, okay, this was really a fun thing to do and just work on. And then after that, one of my family members suggested that I maybe think about doing or offering that. And so I was like, oh, well, all right, because I love animals. And so, yeah. And then I put it out there, and it was just like, I just started doing them on a regular basis. I think I've done maybe over 35 in the last 2 years or something like that. I haven't done one in a few months, just because I've been working on other projects. But they're all on my website, and I've had people. I've gotten commissions as gifts for their family members or just somebody's like, oh man, I just would love to have a painting of my pet.
Sure.
My cat, Massimo, passed away last year, May, and I did a painting of her. It's a bigger size painting, it's like 20 by 20.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hanging in my space here that I live, and it's just, I get it. Like, it's nice to have that painting of her and to see that, and so I get why that's so special.
Yeah. Do you know what might make it? Because it seems to be that there's a different relationship people have with, I guess, any painting, but specifically a portrait or even an animal portrait, as opposed to just having a photograph of somebody. Do you know why there is that change in emotional attachment to one sort of image over the other that people might have?
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's that interpretation of the image through someone's hand. It's like that time spent that someone worked on that. Like, I'm thinking of portraits of people, or I think it's just that an artist created that, and that's a special thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess,
but a photograph's also special, and a photographer work is
yeah,
too.
Yeah,
so it's like, but yeah.
But I guess my thinking is, I've got pictures of my cat on my phone. I'll flip through them. Like, oh, whoops! One of the kids took a picture of the cat accidentally, or even pictures of my family. It's just easy to scroll by them. But at some point, I could say, I've got this picture of my kids. That would really look great as a painting on the wall or whatever. So I'm wondering if the intention, I guess, behind like really putting in, first of all, you got to decide, I want to have this as a painting.
Right.
Then you have to identify somebody that's going to be able to paint it. There's an intention, there's a process, and like you said, a lot of time goes into it, a lot of skill. And I'm just kind of wondering out loud, like, is there, because the portraits that I have seen, the painting portraits that I've seen of family members or pets or whatever, tend to be very prominent spaces. They tend to be sort of revered pieces in the house. Whereas a lot of times you put a photo in a frame and, that's going to go in a box.
Right.
And it's not to disrespect photography in any way
Absolutely,
whatsoever. Yeah. But I'm just wondering, not so much even as the artist, but as a person commissioning that, I'm just wondering if there's ever been a sense of the reason behind wanting the painted portrait as opposed to a photo. Maybe there isn't one.
Yeah.
Maybe I just cut a bunch of this out.
Yeah, I don't know. I also think like everybody's attracted to an artist and what they do for their, like I've commissioned artists to create work for me based on just how much I love their work. So, just something about their artwork. I think there's a connection people feel with artists maybe a little bit too.
Well, that's true.
That's
now completely separate from all this painting that we're talking about, and we haven't even gotten. You know what? Actually, let me back up because I skipped over this earlier, and I do want to touch on this. The canvas sizes that you use, and you mentioned it briefly. Well, sometimes you'll paint small, sometimes you'll paint big. But are you generally working on canvas or paper or one specific medium or one specific size, or does it kind of just range all over to what's available at the time?
Right now it's sort of ranging to what's available, but I have been doing a lot of work on paper.
Okay.
Small collages on paper. And then I'm working on a large painting right now too. So, but probably because I didn't have a lot of canvas at hand in the paper, I just kind of went for the paper just because I wanted to start new works. So, yeah, that's kind of, it's like where I'm at right now, like what's available at the moment. But, there are times like I have in the other room, there's a canvas that's 3 feet by 4 feet, and it's just sitting there staring at me. It's been doing
just a blank canvas.
Well, no, it's got paint on it, but it's like, hey, it's over there. Like, when are you gonna pull me out? I'm ready to go, and I need to, and I will.
Is there something intimidating about a large canvas? Like, because to me, if I saw like a small 5-inch by 5-inch canvas, I'd be like, yeah, I could. It might not look good, but I could cover that. Mm-hmm. But something that's 4 feet.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even know what to do with that.
There's just for like a time investment in something that big, because the surface is so much bigger. So, and then my work has a lot of layers to it, so it's going to take me a lot longer to just create all those layers over and over, on that large space. So, but I'm thinking it's going to be an abstract painting.
Okay.
With collage.
Now, do you work generally with acrylics?
Yes, only acrylic.
Only acrylic. How did you settle on acrylic as opposed to watercolors or oils or any of the other things available there?
I paint really, really fast, and then I feel like I'm a patient person, but I think that back many years ago, I decided that I didn't want to wait for, I don't know. The oil paint took so long to dry, and I was really into working fast at the time. And then watercolor is beautiful. I love it. It's a challenge for me because I don't use watercolor often, but I also like how bold I can get with my colors with acrylic paint. I also know that that's possible with watercolor in a way, but I think the instantaneous, I said that a few times today, but that I like that about acrylic paint, and like I like that I can just kind of be messy with it and get water and just put it out, and it's simple, and I can just make the work.
So you've got a 3 foot by 4 foot canvas, which is a pretty big canvas, but it's not as big as like the side of a building. So you also paint sets for theater up in Hartford.
Yes. Act Up Theater.
Yeah. How did you get involved with Act Up, and what made you decide you wanted to get involved with set building and painting and design?
Faith Lynn Johnson is the director of Act Up Theater, and she and I have known each other for many, many years, and she reached out to me when I moved back here and said, hey, you should be a part of this. And I was like, it was all about supporting her vision with her productions. And so, we started, I jumped right in, and it's amazing. It's such an awesome experience. But it's definitely like a challenge, because with set design, you're thinking about not just, there's so much to think about. Like you're talking about how things move, how much space you have, building it. Although I'm not usually the one to do that, but
most of the painting that you do looks like stuff that is at least designed to be viewed relatively close, within a few feet anyway, to really be able to appreciate it. And like set painting, the sets are designed to be viewed from dozens, if not hundreds of feet away. So is there a difference in, obviously the detail work is not going to be as specific, but is there a different skill set that you have to apply in telling that story on stage through painting, as opposed to setting it onto a canvas?
That's a great question. Yeah.
I know.
I think it's the process is different, just because there's, sometimes we'll start out with a plan a month before the play, and then a week before the play we change it up. And so the process, that can happen with a canvas too. But then, like, I'll do spray paint sometimes with these sets,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't use spray paint as much on my own paintings.
Yeah.
So I think, like, how can I cover a large surface in a short amount of time and get the essence of what we want to create and want the look to be? I think it's like that process is it, because it's like, it's not just me in the studio. I'm working with, all like the cast and like the director and like, we're talking about our ideas and like things change and like, so there's all that going on too.
Yeah. How often do you get like a director or a set designer will say something like, I want this to be this color and we're using it for this. And you just have to be like, look, that color's not going to work. We're not going to get 8 gallons of fluorescent yellow paint.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like where they're just, the image in their head just doesn't work for the actual physical application of the paint. Or does it never happen? Maybe it never happens.
I think it's more so like, how can we make these scenes, or how can we make the set move
Mm-hmm.
and be quick and fluid? Like, that part is more like the structure of the set is more like, this isn't going to work. Like, we're not going to be able to take this giant piece of wood and turn it in time for like the scene to change and stuff like that. Because usually with the painting part and that, like, it's just like, all right, I know, like, this is what we need. Let's just like, so it doesn't happen that much.
Okay.
Yeah. But just with the structural part of it, that's definitely like, that comes into some challenges.
Okay. For people who are interested in learning more about either your work or how they can find workshops and paint nights and stuff like that, where's the best place to find all that information?
So you can go to RebeccaMaloneyArt.com.
Okay.
That's my website. So usually I have everything that's going on with me posted. I usually announce things through my social media too. So Facebook, it's the same, Rebecca Maloney Art. And then Instagram, my handle is Rebecca Maloney Art as well.
Okay.
So pretty easy. And right now I'm working on artwork for a show coming up in June, July, August. And it's going to be at Upward Hartford co-working space in downtown Hartford.
Is this like a gallery showing for you?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yes. Okay. How many pieces are you planning on having up?
I'm planning to have maybe 15 to 20.
Nice. Varying sizes, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And there will be probably some old work, but there's going to be new work too. So I'm really excited about it. And I'll definitely be posting more about that in the next few months.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So the last thing I like to do before I release everybody out into the world again is I always like to get recommendations for whatever's new and exciting for you that you've discovered recently. So do you have anything that you would encourage other people to experience?
Well, so it's a book that I read like a few years ago, but it's something that I'm sort of like, I'll go back to often.
Yeah.
And right around this time, I've been revisiting this book just because I'm in a place where I'm creating new work. And like, so it's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Okay.
And break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. So actually just kind of revisiting this book just talks about resistance. And as an artist, it's really easy to listen to that voice that says, hey, you don't have to like sit down and write anything today. But it's like overcoming that resistance because it's always going to be there. And it's a really encouraging book. So I'd check it out.
Okay. How are you feeling right now?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Rebecca for giving me that second chance. And then actually after we finished this recording, Rebecca became the newest Table to Stage Patreon member. So if you'd like to join Rebecca and the other members, please visit patreon.com/tabletostage, and you can learn how to get advance access to new content, discounts on official merch, and more. Now, the discount also applies to tickets to Table to Stage live on May 22nd. I will have comedian Rob Santos, singer-songwriter Abby Auden, and drag queen sensations Summer Orlando and Barbara Jones Streetzand performing at CT Comedy Theater in Hartford. Now, tickets to Table to Stage Live are just $15, and they are exclusively available at tabletostagepod.com/live. I hope to see many of you there. Now, if you're enjoying the show, but you're not really into Patreon, there are many other ways you can support the show. The most obvious being to leave ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts or Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts. Every review helps others find the show, and if I read your review on the show, I'll send you a Table to Stage sticker pack as a thank you. So rate, review, subscribe, and help spread the word. That is it for now. Until next time, keep creating.